Beneath Fort Worth's calm nights, darkness waits. Gunfire reigns over Comofest's crowded celebration. Bodies lie bound inside a riverside apartment. A delivery man is beaten to death on frozen pavement, and a young mother is found shot beside an empty service road. Now, each killer captured, each verdict delivered, yet justice can't rewrite the last breath of the innocent. Fort Worth moves on, but its shadows still whisper the truth no sentence can silence. And this is Inside Fort Worth's Dangerous Black Killers, full list and shocking true crime case. Welcome back to Justice Reversed, where real crimes meet real justice. Number 1. Christopher Redic Jr. and Brandon Williams. Gunfire shattered the night sky of Fort Worth, echoing through the crowded streets of Como and marking one of Texas's most tragic Independence Day celebrations. On the eve of the 4th of July 2023, the Como neighborhood, a historic community in Fort Worth, gathered for its annual festivities. Families filled the streets for the traditional celebration that follows Comofest, an event known for food, music, and unity. But as night settled, the celebration dissolved into chaos when shots erupted on Horn Street, just 2 hours after the official event had ended. What was meant to be a night of pride turned into a scene of panic and loss. According to Fort Worth police and reports from CBS News and FOX4, the gunfire broke out shortly before midnight. Hundreds of residents were still outside when multiple shooters opened fire into the crowd. Witnesses described people running in every direction, hiding behind cars and fences as bullets tore through the air. When the gunfire stopped, 3 people were dead: Paul Willis, Cynthia Santos, and Gabriela Navarrete. 8 others were wounded. Investigators immediately launched a large-scale search. Detectives collected dozens of shell casings from the street and reviewed surveillance footage from homes and nearby businesses. The recordings showed at least 2 men raising handguns and firing toward the crowd. Within 4 days, police identified 2 suspects, 20-year-old Christopher Redic Jr. and 19-year-old Brandon Williams, both Fort Worth residents. According to arrest warrant affidavits, Williams admitted he fired first after arguing with a man who had threatened him earlier that night. He claimed he did not mean to hit anyone. Redic told police that after hearing gunfire, he also fired 6 rounds, aiming above the crowd. Investigators confirmed that several shooters fired indiscriminately during the attack. Redic and Williams were arrested on the 7th of July 2023. After detectives tracked them through surveillance footage and witness statements. Both were charged with murder. Police Chief Neil Noakes later explained that the shooting appeared to be gang-related, though the exact motive remained unclear. While both suspects were from Fort Worth, they were not necessarily from Como. Forensic investigators mapped the scene in detail, matching bullet trajectories to recovered shell casings. Crime scene technicians also analyzed gunshot residue, confirming both men had fired weapons that night. Despite the arrests, police continued searching for additional suspects, suggesting that more individuals might have been involved. During court appearances in July, Redic and Williams faced multiple murder counts. They were held without bond while awaiting trial, and both declined to enter pleas at their initial hearings. Community members gathered at a small vigil near the courthouse, honoring the victims and urging an end to gun violence, while local leaders vowed tighter security at future celebrations. Fort Worth officials promised changes to how the Comofest after-party would be managed, emphasizing safety and oversight to prevent another tragedy. The echoes of that night remain a painful memory for Como, a community determined to keep celebrating life despite its loss. Before moving on, if this truth hits you, press hype stand with the forgotten, amplify justice, and make sure silence never buries the voices of the lost. Number 2. Kenneth Granviel. A calm Texas evening once concealed the darkness of a man whose crimes would haunt Fort Worth for decades. Kenneth Granviel, born in 1950, grew up in Fort Worth as a quiet and withdrawn child whose violent impulses surfaced early. By 16, he had attempted to assault his mother and later his brother, resulting in confinement at a juvenile state school. After his release, Granviel appeared reformed. He worked steadily, attended church, and lived quietly in his community. But in the fall of 1974, beneath his calm demeanor, those same violent urges returned in the most horrific way. On the 8th of October 1974, Granviel arrived at the Riverside Village Apartments, where he personally knew the McClendon family. Inside were 3 women, Laura and Linda McClendon, their cousin, Martha, and 2 toddlers, Stephen and Natasha. What began as an unannounced visit turned into a mass killing. Investigators later determined that Granviel armed himself with a kitchen knife, tied up the victims, and killed them one by one. 2 children and 3 women were brutally murdered before he fled with their valuables. When the family's stepfather arrived to pick them up for work the next morning, he found the bodies, sparking one of the largest homicide investigations in Fort Worth history. Despite his relationship with the family, Granviel was not initially considered a suspect. Detectives focused on 2 Mexican nationals, later cleared, while Granviel openly discussed the murders at work, claiming the killer should be hanged. Months passed without progress. Then, on the 8th of February, 1975, he struck again. He lured a friend, Betty Williams, into his apartment under the pretense of offering cigarettes. There, he attacked and raped her before being interrupted by another acquaintance, Vera Hill. He stabbed Hill to death, returned to kill Williams, and later kidnapped another woman after committing additional assaults. Hours later, overwhelmed with guilt, Granviel drove to Pilgrim's Galilee Baptist Church and picked up Reverend Roy Lee Spearman. Together, they went to the Fort Worth Police Department. Inside an interrogation room, Granviel calmly placed a pistol and butcher knife on the table and confessed to 7 murders. Detectives accompanied him to his apartment, where they discovered the bodies of Williams and Hill. His confession matched evidence from every crime scene, including details never released publicly. He was charged with 7 counts of capital murder and 1 count of aggravated rape, making him eligible for the death penalty. During his trial, prosecutors introduced his written confession and physical evidence linking him to all victims. Defense psychiatrists claimed he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, but state experts testified he knew right from wrong. After weeks of testimony, a jury unanimously convicted Granviel and sentenced him to death. Granviel's appeals stretched over 20 years as lawyers challenged Texas's lethal injection method. On the 27th of February 1996, he was executed at the Huntsville unit without delivering a final statement. His crimes remain a chilling reminder of how evil can hide behind familiarity and time cannot erase the weight of justice. Number 3. Chrisantus Omondi. On a freezing January evening in Fort Worth, Texas, a delivery driver's routine job turned into one of the city's most shocking crimes. 51-year-old Scott Edward Jackson, known to friends as Scotty, ran a small firewood delivery business with his daughter. On the 13th of January 2024, he drove to a customer's home on Wendover Drive to drop off a load of wood before nightfall. Across the street, 27-year-old Chrisantus Omondi was staying at an Airbnb. What happened next would end Jackson's life and leave a quiet neighborhood reeling. According to official police reports and local news accounts, Jackson and his customer were unloading firewood when Omondi, described by witnesses as completely naked, emerged from across the street. He shouted that they were on his property, brandishing a key and demanding they leave. When Jackson intervened to calm the situation, Omondi snapped. He shoved the homeowner, grabbed a piece of firewood from the wheelbarrow, and struck the man in the head. As the customer fled to his house to call 911, Omondi turned his rage on Jackson. Witnesses said he repeatedly hit the driver with pieces of wood, even dumping the remaining firewood over him before running away. When police arrived, Jackson was pronounced dead at the scene. The Tarrant County Medical Examiner ruled his cause of death as blunt force trauma to the head and neck. While emergency crews worked the scene, officers traced Omondi to the Airbnb where he had been staying. Inside, a female tenant told investigators that Omondi had burst into the home moments after the killing, screaming threats and attempting to break into her room. Terrified, she locked herself in a bathroom and called for help. Police found Omondi still naked, combative, and refusing to comply. Officers were forced to use a stun gun to restrain him. Investigators recovered multiple witness statements, security footage, and physical evidence linking Omondi to the assault. Court documents later revealed that he had a prior criminal history, including charges for evading arrest and assaulting a security guard at gunpoint in a separate case. Detectives confirmed that Omondi's erratic behavior during the attack and his violent outburst afterward suggested possible drug influence, though toxicology results were not disclosed publicly. Omondi was charged with murder, aggravated assault against a security officer, and obstruction or retaliation. He was booked into the Tarrant County Jail, with bond set at more than $300,000. Court officials have not yet confirmed a trial date, and no verdict has been reported. In the days that followed, the Fort Worth community expressed quiet shock. The victim's daughter described her father as hardworking, kind, and endlessly dependable. Neighbors left flowers by the driveway where the fatal attack occurred, a gesture of mourning in a city unaccustomed to such random violence. This case stands as one of Fort Worth's most unsettling recent murders, exposing how a single violent act can shatter the calm of everyday life. Even on an ordinary night, peace can vanish in a heartbeat. Number 4. Maurice Kelso Smith. A moment of celebration turned to tragedy when love, control, and violence collided in Fort Worth, Texas. On the 29th of June 2020, 26-year-old Darian Burley, who was 8 months pregnant with twin boys, was shot and killed by her boyfriend, 32-year-old Maurice Kelso Smith. The couple had once been full of hope, hosting a gender reveal party just weeks before the murder. But the happiness quickly dissolved. In the weeks that followed, their relationship became volatile as Smith spiraled into drug use and paranoia. Friends and family warned Burley to stay away, fearing what he might do. Their concerns would prove tragically justified. According to police reports and court testimony, the day before the murder, Smith illegally purchased a handgun through an acquaintance. Despite being a convicted felon barred from owning firearms, he used Burley's own money, around $250, to help buy the gun that would end her life. On the morning of June 29, witnesses saw the couple leaving a Waffle House in Fort Worth. Less than an hour later, Smith pulled the trigger, shooting Burley in the back of the head inside his car. She died instantly. Smith then drove to Mansfield, Texas, with Burley's body still in the vehicle. There, investigators say he robbed a woman at gunpoint, stole her car, and left Burley's body inside his abandoned Honda Civic. Inside that car, police later found a blood-soaked scene and a sonogram photo of the unborn twins lying next to her body. While attempting to escape, Smith committed another attempted robbery nearby before returning home to destroy evidence. When detectives arrived, they found him cleaning the stolen car and washing blood from his clothes. The murder weapon was recovered inside his residence. Ballistics testing confirmed it matched the casing found in the car where Burley's body was discovered. Smith was taken into custody but feigned disorientation, claiming to have overdosed. Hospital staff and officers quickly determined he was faking, noting he even tried to pick the lock on his restraints. Once stabilized, Smith was charged with capital murder of multiple persons, aggravated robbery, unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon, and tampering with evidence. His trial took place in Tarrant County, where prosecutors presented the full scope of his actions and prior assaults against Burley earlier that month. The defense argued mental instability and drug use, but the evidence was overwhelming. In March 2024, a jury found Maurice Kelso Smith guilty of capital murder. He received an automatic sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The courtroom remained silent as the verdict was read. Family members of the victim spoke briefly, expressing grief but not hatred. They emphasized that no sentence could restore what had been lost. Smith remains incarcerated under the supervision of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. For Fort Worth residents, the case stands as a devastating reminder of how quickly domestic violence can turn fatal. In Texas justice, truth eventually catches those who believe they can outrun it. Number 5. Christopher Jerome Blanton, Jr. A calm Monday afternoon in Fort Worth ended in sudden violence when a rising Texas musician opened fire in broad daylight. On the 18th of August 2024, 32-year-old Cody Devontae Scott was driving near East Berry Street and South Edgewood Terrace when his path crossed with that of local artist Christopher Jerome Blanton, Jr., known in the music scene as Seeing Jerome. Blanton, 29, had gained regional attention for blending country and hip-hop into what he called hood country. But that afternoon, his name became tied not to a song, but to a fatal shooting that left one man dead and an entire community stunned. According to the Fort Worth Police Department and court documents, the shooting occurred just before 3 p.m. Blanton claimed he believed he was being followed by Scott's vehicle, a gray car he said he had first noticed at a nearby Murphy Express gas station. Driving toward his studio, Blanton allegedly grew convinced that Scott was chasing him. Witnesses later told investigators that Blanton's dually pickup pulled up alongside Scott's car at an intersection. From the driver's side window, Blanton fired multiple rounds into the vehicle. His passenger told police that Blanton warned him to lean back just before pulling out a handgun and opening fire. Scott's car veered off the road and crashed into a utility pole. First responders arrived within minutes, finding him critically wounded. He was transported to the hospital but died the following day from a single gunshot injury. Detectives quickly tracked Blanton down about 3 miles from the scene based on vehicle descriptions provided by witnesses. He was arrested without incident and initially charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. When Scott succumbed to his injuries, the charge was upgraded to murder. Blanton told investigators he acted in self-defense, insisting that Scott had pointed a pistol at him, but evidence from the scene did not support his account. Police confirmed that no firearm was found in Scott's vehicle, and his windows were tinted so darkly that witnesses doubted Blanton could have seen inside. Investigators also emphasized that there had been no confrontation or road rage exchange between the two men, who were complete strangers. Blanton's passenger corroborated this, saying he never saw Scott holding a weapon and could not explain why Blanton started shooting. After his arrest, Blanton's bond was set and later increased to $180,000. He was released after posting bail, a decision that drew criticism from the victim's family, who argued the amount was far too low given the severity of the charge. The case remains in the pre-trial stage, with prosecutors preparing to present evidence that disputes Blanton's claim of self-defense. Family members of Cody Scott expressed their grief quietly outside court. Community members near the shooting site held small gatherings demanding justice. In Fort Worth, one careless act of violence silenced 2 lives, the victims, and the artist's future. Number 6. Kenyon Buchanan. A quiet New Year's celebration in Fort Worth ended in violence when a 71-year-old man confronted a thief in the dark. Roger Smith, a retired Texan who enjoyed bingo nights with friends, left a bingo hall on Crawley Road just after midnight on the 1st of January 2024. It was the first morning of the new year. As he approached his pickup truck, he saw a man rummaging through it. That man was later identified as 33-year-old Kenyon Buchanan. According to investigators, Buchanan had been stealing Smith's wallet, phone, and lawn equipment from the vehicle. What happened next turned a simple act of theft into a deadly encounter. Witnesses told police that Smith confronted the suspect, who immediately pulled out a gun. One gunshot echoed through the parking lot, striking Smith and knocking him to the ground. Buchanan fled within seconds, driving away in a white SUV. Emergency responders arrived soon after, but Smith was pronounced dead at the scene. The bullet had pierced his chest, ending his life instantly. The incident shocked those who knew him as a kind man who enjoyed simple routines and never sought conflict. Detectives from the Fort Worth Police Department began their investigation in the early morning hours. Surveillance footage from the bingo hall and nearby businesses captured a white Mazda SUV speeding away from the scene. The vehicle's description was circulated to patrol units across the city. Officers recovered several shell casings and dusted Smith's truck for prints. Inside, they found signs of a forced entry and missing items consistent with the witness statements. On January 3, 2 days after the killing, officers spotted a vehicle matching the suspect's car traveling in South Fort Worth. They conducted a traffic stop and identified the driver as Kenyon Buchanan. His appearance had changed, his hair was freshly cut, and he appeared anxious. A passenger inside the vehicle later provided crucial information to detectives, stating that Buchanan had admitted to being present at the scene and had altered his appearance after learning on the news that the victim had died. Buchanan was arrested without incident and transported to the Tarrant County Jail. Detectives later executed a search warrant on the vehicle, recovering items believed to have been taken from Smith's truck. Ballistic testing confirmed the shell casing at the crime scene matched a weapon linked to Buchanan. Buchanan was charged with capital murder, a charge reserved for killings committed during the course of another felony such as robbery. Court documents show he was booked into both the Fort Worth City Jail and later the county facility. His trial has not yet concluded, and he remains in custody awaiting prosecution. Family members of Roger Smith expressed quiet grief, describing him as a man who worked hard his entire life only to lose it protecting his property. No organized protests or legislative changes followed the killing, but the crime left residents deeply unsettled at how quickly an ordinary moment could turn deadly. Justice moves slowly, but in Fort Worth, it never forgets. Number 7. Jacoby Roberts. Beneath the surface of a family bond, jealousy and greed were quietly building toward an act of deadly betrayal. On the 4th of April 2023, Fort Worth police responded to reports of gunfire outside an apartment complex on Ivywood Lane. They found 25-year-old Jylon Freeman lying on the sidewalk with a fatal gunshot wound to the back of his head. The shooter, investigators learned, was not a stranger. The man who pulled the trigger was his cousin, 23-year-old Jacoby Roberts. What began as a family dispute over drug money ended in what prosecutors would later call a calculated ambush and one of Fort Worth's most cold-blooded murders of the year. Detectives pieced together the events leading up to the killing through interviews, text records, and witness statements. Roberts and Freeman had been selling cocaine together, but tension grew after Roberts accused his cousin of shorting him $500. Instead of confronting him directly, Roberts decided to stage a fake drug deal. With help from two accomplices, Jordan Thurman, the driver, and Draylon Gowans, who posed as a customer, Roberts lured Freeman outside his apartment that evening. Surveillance footage confirmed the cousins met briefly before a single shot was fired. The bullet entered the back of Freeman's head, killing him instantly. Roberts fled the scene, taking Freeman's handgun and a bag of cocaine. Police immediately issued a capital murder warrant, identifying Roberts as armed and dangerous. Investigators discovered he might be hiding with relatives in Houston or possibly connected to Tulsa. For nearly 2 months, Roberts remained on the run until the 31st of May 2023, when he unexpectedly walked into the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office and surrendered. During questioning, Roberts denied premeditation, claiming self-defense and insisting that Freeman had reached for a gun. Detectives countered his story with forensic and eyewitness evidence. One detective pointed out that Roberts was wearing a latex glove and a ski mask during the shooting, details inconsistent with panic or fear. The trajectory of the bullet and absence of struggle supported prosecutors' argument that it was an execution-style killing. By summer, both accomplices were arrested and indicted for capital murder. Investigators retrieved incriminating messages between Roberts and Gowans arranging the ambush. Roberts's trial began later that year in the 396th District Court of Tarrant County. Prosecutors presented digital evidence, testimony from co-defendant Thurman, and cell phone data showing Roberts's location at the scene. The defense maintained that Freeman pulled a gun first, but the jury found the evidence overwhelming. After 2 hours of deliberation, they returned a unanimous verdict, guilty of capital murder. Roberts received a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The Freeman family expressed brief but heartfelt grief, with Jaylon's mother describing her disbelief that the violence had come from within her own bloodline. No formal protests or policy discussions followed, but the case left an enduring mark on Fort Worth's violent crime landscape. A bond of family once built on trust ended where betrayal met a gun's single echo. Number 8. Ledarren Tilley. A December morning in Fort Worth revealed a tragedy that began behind closed doors and ended in violence hidden from view. On the 5th of December 2024, a city maintenance worker mowing a remote property owned by the Fort Worth Water Department discovered the body of 32-year-old mother of 4, Tateria McGuire. Her body was partially clothed, lying in the grass beside a service road. She had been shot to death. The investigation that followed uncovered a disturbing pattern of domestic abuse and deception involving her boyfriend, 37-year-old Ledarren Tilley, who would soon face a murder charge that stunned 2 North Texas communities. Days earlier, on December 3, McGuire's mother, Patrice Bowden, had reported her daughter missing to Arlington police after she failed to respond to calls or messages. Officers conducted a welfare check at McGuire's home but found no trace of her. Investigators soon learned that McGuire had recently told relatives she planned to end her relationship with Tilley. According to family members, the couple's relationship had been volatile, marked by months of escalating domestic violence. When questioned, Tilley claimed that he had last seen McGuire on December 2, when she supposedly left their Arlington home alone. Later, he adjusted his story, saying the two had argued while driving home from Irving, before he dropped her off at her residence and drove straight to his father's house in Dallas. Detectives, however, quickly learned that his account did not match what McGuire's children told investigators. The children reported that both adults left the home together that night and that Tilley returned alone the next morning to take them to school, saying their mother had gone to stay with someone else. They also noted that Tilley habitually carried a firearm. Investigators from the Fort Worth Police Department began piecing together a timeline using surveillance footage, phone data, and vehicle tracking. Video evidence captured Tilley's white Chevrolet Tahoe traveling toward the isolated area where McGuire's body was later found. The same vehicle was seen leaving the scene just hours before sunrise. This contradicted his claim that he drove directly to Dallas. When confronted, Tilley admitted he had been in control of the Tahoe all night. Police found no signs that McGuire had been with anyone else, and the inconsistencies in Tilley's statements deepened suspicions. Detectives determined that he was the last person seen with her alive and had deliberately misled investigators after her disappearance. Based on the physical evidence, witness accounts, and surveillance footage, police obtained a warrant for Tilley's arrest. He was taken into custody and charged with murder. Court records show he remains held in the Tarrant County Jail on a $250,000 bond while awaiting trial. McGuire's family expressed quiet heartbreak and launched an online fundraiser to cover funeral expenses and ensure care for the children she left behind. In the quiet fields outside Fort Worth, a mother's life ended, but her story refused to fade. In a city where the skyline hides both ambition and darkness, Fort Worth's stories never truly end, they echo. Each case you've just heard isn't just a headline, it's a reminder of how quickly violence can shatter normal life. Behind every name lies a haunting truth, a motive that twisted into murder, and a justice system racing to catch up. If you want to keep uncovering the crimes that shaped Texas, the killers who thought they'd never be caught, make sure you subscribe to Justice Reversed and turn on the notification bell. Because the next story might be darker, deeper, and closer than you think.